God has the power to work in every situation of our life. The key is to not limit Him. With God, all things are possible. Thank you for joining with me today. I hope you are doing well and are safe wherever you are. I want to begin by asking a question. Do we limit God according to our thinking limitation? Let me put it this way. If we know a probable solution to the situation or the problem which is there in our life, we wouldn't limit God. But on the other hand, if we can't perceive a probable solution to the situation which we are in, we tend to limit God in our situations. Many times what happens, the way we think or assume or make things look so natural that automatically we think this is the way how, or this is how the situation will turn out to be, or this is how the situation should be. In our thinking itself, we limit the supernatural to take place in our situation. And so today, if you are wondering and thinking whether God can do anything in your situation, whether God can help you out in the struggles which you are going through, I want to remind you what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 19. In Matthew chapter 19, verse 26, Jesus said, "With God, all things are possible." So I want to encourage you, don't limit God. Whatever is the situation, how much ever intense is the situation, yet I want to tell, don't limit God. It might be any situation. Maybe there is some form of lack or some form of shortage which you feel is there in your life and you feel God cannot restore that. Or maybe you are struggling with some health condition. Or maybe you are in a situation which feels like a complete dead-end situation. You can't see anything coming out of it. Any situation, anything under the sun, whatever it is, yet I want to remind you and encourage you, don't limit God in your situations. I want to take few examples from the Bible, few incidents which happened in few people's lives so that we can relate in much more better way. So the first one, in John chapter 2, we see the first miracle which Jesus did at the wedding at Cana. I assume that you know this incident which took place. So here we see Jesus miraculously turns the water into wine. Now I want to focus on verse 9 and verse 10 of John chapter 2, where we see the master of the banquet calls the bridegroom and he's talking and he's having a chat with the bridegroom. So later part of verse 9 it says like this: "Master of the banquet called the bridegroom aside, and he said, 'Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now.'" Now, there was a situation in this incident which we see. The problem was that the wine was no more. The wine got over in the middle of the wedding. It was the situation where the bridegroom could have been put into disappointment, into shame. But we see Jesus did a miracle where the bridegroom was supposed to be full of shame, where the situation was supposed to be, shameful, disappointment, that turned out into something rejoicing. I want to tell you today, God wants to turn your lack into something beautiful, to something precious. The key is to not limit Him of His ability to work in your life. And just as we see here, the best wine came later. God is wanting and He is able to do immeasurably more than what you ask and imagine. In Ephesians chapter 3, verse 3, we read that. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20, it says like this. I'll read that out. Now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than we ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us, to Him be glory forever and ever. And amen to that. So God is able to work even in the lack which you feel is there in His life. You need to just trust Him. You need to just believe that He is able to provide immeasurably that what you ask or imagine. So this is the first thing which I want to tell you. Don't limit God even in your lack. Another thing which I want to focus today is don't limit God by the doctor's report. And in the beginning of my video I said, many times we think or assume this is how the things or this is how the situation should be. I want to tell you, don't limit by thinking, oh, this is natural and this is how my health situation would be because that's what my doctor said, that's what the reports say. Instead of that, I want to encourage you, believe that God is able to give you a supernatural healing because He has already healed you when He died on that cross. In the Bible, we read about the woman who suffered with the issue of bleeding. In Mark chapter 5, we read about her. Mark chapter 5 verse 25 onwards, we read about her. It says like this, Mark chapter 5 verse 25. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. Verse 26. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet, instead of getting better, she grew worse. We see here she suffered with this issue for 12 years in her life. Now, what do you think? How did she get her healing? When we read here in verse 28, we see it says like this. She thought, if I just touch His clothes, I will be healed. She thought. Now, that woman knew the power which Jesus holds. And because of that, she received her healing. If she would have thought like this, 12 years of my life, I have struggled with it. Maybe I have to live with it all throughout my life. Doctors were not able to heal me. So I guess this is my destiny. This is how it's going to be. Or if she would have limited by thinking like this, how can I go when I'm having such kind of issue of bleeding? How can I go and ask for healing to Jesus? Or what will people think when I go and ask? Or if I go and touch His cloth? If she would have limited in her thinking and not went ahead in a step of faith, she wouldn't have received her healing. Now, it is very important that we don't limit according to our thinking limitation. Because in Isaiah 55 we read, His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. His ways are higher than our ways. So I want to encourage you today. Maybe you might be struggling with a health issue for years together, or maybe months, or for that matter weeks or days, whatever it is. I want to tell you, God is able to heal you. He has already healed you. You just need to go and ask God in faith. Something very beautiful we read here in verse 34. We see Jesus commending that woman, and He says to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. So it's that a step of faith which you need to take and ask God for healing. For healing is your birthright and God is our physician. So don't limit by the doctor's report. Moving on to another area which I want to focus today is, don't limit God even with your profession. Don't limit Him even with what you do at your workplace. Now, you might think, what God has to do with my work? Because I am well equipped and I'm well aware of what responsibilities I have at my workplace. Now, yes, definitely you should be knowing and you should be aware of what you need to be doing, and that's very important. But what I want to emphasize by saying this is not limiting God at your workplace is the spirit of attentiveness, or the spirit to discern God's voice even at your workplace can make a lot of difference in your workplace. Let me explain with the example of Simon Peter and his friends. In Luke chapter 5, we see that incident where they tried whole night, yet they couldn't catch any fish. And next day, Jesus comes to them and Jesus asks them, let's go out and let down the nets for a catch. So that's the incident which I'm referring to. So in this passage, Jesus tells them in verse Luke chapter 5 verse 4, it says like this. Jesus is telling to Simon, put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch. Okay, so Simon Peter and his friends, they were experts in their profession. They were professional fishermen. And so they knew when is the best time to catch the fish, which place they should go, where they would catch the fish. They were experts. So that was the situation. And at that situation, Jesus comes and tells to Simon, let's go for a catch. Now, because Simon was, attentive to the voice of Jesus, he was willing to do what Jesus told him to do. He was blessed with a greater blessing in his life. There might come times in your life where you feel, I know best. But I want to tell you, if you are attentive to that voice which God tells you, there will be a greater blessing even at your workplace. So I want to tell you, don't limit God even with your profession. He can do things, He can work through you, which will take you to heights. And the last thing today, which I want to share with you is, don't limit God even when the situation is hopeless. Even when you can't see anything good coming out of your situation. When Jesus' disciples were in the middle of the storm, they were really terrified because it was a really scary situation which they were in. They didn't know what is going to happen the next moment, whether they are going to be alive or dead. Now I want you to do a little bit of imagination now. Assume today it's a good weather and you want to go out for a quick picnic with your family, and so you set out for a journey in a boat. Okay, not on a ship, on a boat, you are setting out for a journey. Now, as you are going ahead, suddenly the weather changes. You see it started to rain, and gradually that's getting worse, and storms are coming, and the winds are getting harder. winds is beating against in Mark chapter 4 we read about this incident, and as the situation is getting worse, the waters is getting into the boat, and you just don't know what to do. It's like a real death and life situation. I'm sure you would panic. I would panic if I was in the boat and this is the situation. So this was exactly the situation where the disciples were in. It wasn't some like just a normal storm which came and it was all in control. No, that wasn't the situation. It was really scary. Yet, even in that situation, when the situation was so scary, Jesus, after when he calms the storm, he asks his disciples, "Do you still have no faith in me?" Do you realize something of what's happening in this situation? Jesus is expecting that level of faith from his disciples, and that's the level of faith which God also expects from us. Even when you are in middle of the storm, even when you don't see a way out, it's like a total give up situation, God is able to pull you out of that storm if you don't limit God to work in your situation. He is able to do, but many times what happens is we limit him according to our thinking limitation. So these were some of the examples which I wanted to share with you. Maybe you might be going through similar situation, or your situation might be an altogether different one. But whatever it is, I want to tell you, you can trust God because our God is a trustworthy God. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And there is no favoritism with God. So I want to encourage you today to just think over what we heard just now and to stop limiting God according to our thinking limitation. So I want to end by saying this. Don't limit God according to what you think, and don't limit God by hardening your heart. So let us grow together in a deeper understanding of our God. I'm sure this word is been a blessing to you. So please share it with your friends and place your comments below. God bless you and stay tuned with Lub Dub Attune.